There is a person you know. You have seen them walk into a room and something shifts. Not dramatically, not loudly. There is no announcement, no grand entrance, no performance designed to make you notice them. They simply arrive. And yet, something changes in the atmosphere. Conversations adjust. People become slightly more aware. Eyes move in their direction without being asked to. You have felt it, that pull, that quiet gravity. And the strange part, the part that never quite made sense, is that this person was not trying. They were not dressed to shock you. They were not speaking louder than necessary. They were not dropping names or inflating stories or laughing at the right moments to seem more likable. They were not performing any of the behaviors you were taught would make people pay attention. They were just there, present, settled, complete. And you could not stop watching them. Now flip the picture. Think about the person who tries. The one who enters the same room and immediately begins adjusting, scanning faces, raising their energy, launching into stories designed to impress, agreeing with everything, filling every silence with something calculated to make them more appealing. You have seen that person too, and if you are being ruthlessly honest, you have probably been that person. Here is the question that this video is built around. Why does the person who tries less command more? And why does the person who tries hardest end up with the least? The answer is not simple, and it is not comfortable, but it is real. And by the time we reach the end of this, you will never look at a social interaction the same way again. The fundamental misunderstanding about respect. Most people operate under a deeply flawed assumption about how respect works. They believe respect is something you build through demonstration, through showing people what you are capable of, through consistent proof of your value, your intelligence, your likability, your worth. So they demonstrate, constantly, in every conversation, in every room, in every interaction. They share achievements at moments when nobody asked. They correct people to show they know more. They laugh loudly to signal they are fun. They agree reflexively to signal they are easy to be around. They dress, speak, move, and present themselves in ways engineered entirely around anticipated reactions. And they are confused, genuinely confused, when none of it produces the respect they were chasing, because the fundamental assumption is wrong. Respect is not built through demonstration. Respect is assigned through perception. And perception does not operate on logic. It does not measure your actual qualities, your real achievements, or the genuine effort you are putting in. Perception operates on signals, subtle, unconscious, continuously processed signals that bypass rational thought entirely and go straight to the part of the brain that calculates social value. And here is the signal that impression-seeking sends, every single time, without exception. I need you to think well of me. That signal, that need, is what collapses the respect you were trying to build before it ever had a chance to stand. Because the moment someone perceives that you need their approval, they have power over you. And the moment they have power over you, they cannot fully respect you. Respect and power are psychologically incompatible in that configuration. You cannot deeply respect someone whose sense of self depends on your reaction. This is not cruelty. This is just how the human nervous system processes social relationships. What the brain is actually measuring. Every social interaction you have ever been part of involves two simultaneous conversations. The first conversation is the one you are aware of. The words, the topic, the surface exchange. The second conversation is the one happening beneath it, in the nervous systems of everyone present. This conversation has no words. It operates entirely on biological signals, and it is answering one question continuously. Where does this person rank? This sounds reductive. It is. Human beings are animals before they are anything else, and the social brain is still running software designed for tribal survival. Status, hierarchy, and social rank are not modern concepts we invented. They are ancient calculations our nervous systems perform automatically. And impression-seeking, the frantic, anxious performance of value, triggers a very specific response in that ancient calculation. It reads as low rank. Here is why. In any social environment, ancient or modern, the individuals with genuine high status did not need to perform. Their value was already established. Their position was already known. They moved through social space with ease because they had nothing to prove. The individuals who performed, who worked hard to be seen, heard, and valued, were performing precisely because their position was not secure. The performance was the signal of insecurity, of low rank, of a gap between actual value and desired value. Your nervous system learned to read that signal thousands of years ago, and it still reads it today, every time, in every room. The person who is trying too hard to impress you reads as someone who needs to impress you, and someone who needs to impress you has already, on a biological level, communicated that they are beneath you in the hierarchy, and you cannot fully respect someone you perceive as beneath you. This is why trying harder produces less. Not because people are consciously dismissing you, but because their nervous systems are processing your signals and returning a rank that your behavior itself created. The architecture of natural respect. So what does the person who commands respect without trying actually do differently? Let me break this down precisely, because it is not magic. It is not charisma in the traditional sense. It is not confidence as a performance. It is something more structural, more internal, more fundamentally about how a person relates to their own value. First, they have already decided. The person who commands natural respect has made a prior internal decision that most people never make. They have decided, not as a thought, but as a settled feeling, that their value is not subject to external confirmation. They are not in the room waiting to find out if they are worthy. They already know, not arrogantly, not loudly, just quietly, completely, without needing anyone to agree. That prior decision changes everything about how they move, speak, and exist in social space. Because when you are not waiting for a verdict, you stop performing for the jury. And when you stop performing for the jury becomes genuinely curious about you. Second, they are comfortable with silence. The impression seeker fills silence, immediately, anxiously, because silence feels like a verdict. Like the absence of noise means something is wrong, something is not working, people are not engaged enough. The person who commands natural respect treats silence differently. They allow it. They sit inside it without rushing to fill it. They let a statement land and remain landed without immediately following it with a qualifier, a joke, or an explanation. That comfort with silence signals something powerful. It signals that the interaction's outcome does not frighten them, that they do not need it to go a certain way, that they are okay regardless of how the room responds. And that signal, that quiet immunity to social pressure, is one of the most commanding qualities a human being can project. Third, they disagree without anxiety. The impression seeker agrees, reflexively, even when they don't mean it. Because disagreement feels risky, it might make someone like them less, might create tension, might cost them the approval they came for. The person who commands natural respect disagrees when they genuinely disagree, calmly, without hostility, without the need to win the argument, but without backing down simply because the room is uncomfortable. That willingness to hold a position under social pressure communicates something essential. This person's sense of self does not require your agreement to remain intact, and that is deeply psychologically compelling to every nervous system in the room. Fourth, they are selective with their energy. The impression seeker gives energy to everyone equally, laughing at every joke, engaging with every person, making themselves available to the entire room. The person who commands natural respect is selective, not coldly, not as a game, but genuinely. Their attention and energy are given where they are genuinely interested and withheld where they are not. That selectivity creates something powerful, the experience of earning their attention. When someone's attention is freely given to everyone, receiving it means nothing. When someone's attention is clearly selective, receiving it means everything. The paradox at the center of all of this. Here is the paradox that most people cannot sit with long enough to actually absorb. The qualities that generate genuine respect are only genuine when they are not being used to generate respect. Read that again. If you become selective with your attention as a strategy to seem more valuable, it will not work, because the calculation is still driven by the need for approval. The behavior changed, but the root did not, and people's nervous systems will detect the performance beneath the strategy. If you practice sitting with silence because you read that it makes you seem more powerful, it will not work, because you are still managing the impression, still performing, just performing a different character. The shift that actually changes everything is not behavioral. It is not a set of techniques you deploy in social situations. It is a fundamental reorientation of where you source your sense of value. As long as your value comes from outside, from reactions, from approval, from the confirmation of others, you will be trapped in impression management. Every interaction will be a performance. Every silence will be a threat. Every disagreement will be a risk. But when your value comes from inside, from a settled, clear, non-negotiable internal standard, the performance becomes unnecessary, not as a decision you make, as a natural consequence of genuinely not needing what you used to need. And that is when something changes in how the world responds to you. Not because you did something different, but because you became someone different. What changes when you stop? When the shift is real, when it comes from a genuine internal reorientation rather than a strategy, the changes in your social reality are concrete and unmistakable. Conversations feel different. You stop monitoring them. You stop tracking how you are landing, whether people are impressed, whether you said the right thing. You are simply in the conversation, present, genuine, responding from what you actually think rather than from what you think you should say. And people feel that difference immediately. They may not be able to name it, but they feel it, and it draws them in. Your opinions carry more weight. When you're no longer adjusting your opinions based on the room, your opinions become consistent. Consistent opinions from a person who clearly does not need your agreement carry enormous psychological weight. People begin to seek out what you think, not because you are smarter, but because what you think is clearly actually yours. People remember you. The impression seeker is often forgotten, not maliciously, but because performance is forgettable. It blends into the background of all the other performances people encounter daily. The person who is simply and completely themselves, with no adjustment, no filter, no management, is remembered, because genuine presence is rare, and rare things leave marks. The right people stay. When you stop performing, the people who were only there for the performance leave. This can feel like loss. It is not. It is clarity. What remains when the performance stops is real. The connections built on genuine presence rather than managed impression are architecturally different. They do not require maintenance. They do not collapse when you have a bad day. They do not depend on you continuing to perform. They are simply there, because something real found something real, and real things hold. Come back to that person you thought about at the beginning, the one who walked into a room and shifted everything without trying. You understand now what they were actually doing, or more precisely, what they were not doing. They were not managing your impression of them. They were not calculating your reaction. They were not performing a version of themselves designed to make you respect them. They had simply arrived at a place, internally, quietly, completely, where your opinion of them was not the variable their behavior was organized around. And that freedom, that complete internal freedom from the need for your approval, is exactly what made your approval feel so automatically given. This is the paradox you have to live with. Respect follows the people who do not need it. Not as a rule you follow, not as a strategy you deploy, as a reality you inhabit, when you have done the internal work of deciding once and genuinely that your value does not require a single other person's confirmation to be real. That is the shift. Everything else follows from it. This is detached reality. No emotions, no illusions, just truth. If this reached somewhere real in you, sit with that. Do not rush past it. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper. What comes next will ask more of you, but it will give you more in return.